folks should try to undermine what I've been doing.
Yes, Billy Teichmiller. We got some surprises for you, and that's what's going to make it special.
Surprises.
We have some of your old girlfriends that we're going to call, and
Oh, no.
all kinds of stuff.
I know it.
Welcome back to Pickle Potato, everybody. Today we got a special guest, Billy Teichmiller, with 5 O'Clock Charlie drummer, with a bunch of other projects going on, which we're going to talk about. Welcome to the podcast, Billy. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. I want to get you on here for a while, but it wasn't special enough. But it's special today.
Yeah.
Okay. And we got some surprises for you, and that's what's going to make it special.
Surprises.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have some of your old girlfriends that we're going to call, and
Oh, no.
all kinds of stuff. Well, one thing I wanted to get off my chest, because I've heard a bunch of different rumors going on, and I don't know how much you've watched the podcast, but we talk about Michael Klein quite a bit on here, and he's a meme a lot. He kind of pops in here and there,
Yeah.
and we'll put like his faces as people's talking when we start talking about him. But he told me a story that he kind of like tricked you into becoming part of 5 O'Clock Charlie. Is that correct?
Not really.
Really?
Yeah. They were looking for a drummer.
Yeah.
And Michael contacted me and, you know, any drummers looking for work? And I was like, I might be interested. So he didn't really trick me into it, but yeah, we'll let him have that.
He lies to me all the time.
Well, he lies to everybody.
Well, you know what? I wanted to do this for a long time. And like I said,
Now people will ask him what his name is.
Yeah.
They'll never get Michael.
right.
It's always something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've always wanted to call him live on a podcast.
Oh no, you're gonna call Klein?
Yeah, because I'm tired of him lying. Hopefully he answers.
Hello.
Hey man, I got Billy here in the podcast, and he said that you did not trick him into being on 5 O'Clock Charlie.
We'll let him think that.
I thought what's that echo happening?
Tricked you today, though.
I told you we had some special treats for you.
Uh-huh.
Hey guys, we're going to take a quick break. I know it's just the beginning, but we're going to get set up because we have a special guest here today. It's going to be a co-host, Michael Klein, as you've seen him just pop in. Hey guys, welcome back to Pickle Potato. As you can see, we got our special, not only a special guest, we got a special host that's going to be doing Billy here.
Doing Billy. I'll agree.
Well,
Okay.
we're not going to video that part, but anyway. Michael Klein, please
Hey,
go for it.
well, we tricked you this time for sure. Even though maybe you say I didn't trick you into the band.
You
but
tricked me this
I
time.
tricked you this time.
Yeah.
One every decade is not too bad.
And you beat me here.
Kinda. I was sitting down at the corner. The vet's office was wondering what I was doing there. But talked to Bill about this, and I'm like, well, I am Billy's #1 fan, so I should do this. So I'm going to do a bit of a monologue, if y'all bear with me for a minute. So when Bill asked about this, it took me to a place where the younger me was deciding what I was going to do as a bass player, converting over from tuba. And whether y'all agree with this or not, or bass players out there, this is my version of coming of age as a bass player. You really have a few pathways you can take as a bass player. And this will all make sense at the end, so just bear with me. The first category is a singing bass player. So the young mind, young me. So how am I going to do this? And talk about singing bass players, talk about Paul McCartney and Geddy Lee, and locally as Bobby Hendrix, So the younger me says, well, I'm going to be able to do that. So the next category in my mind was the masters, the people that are proficient at their instrument, playing upright, the Billy Sheehan's, the Jocos, they read music, they play jazz, they go to school, they read music, all that. And locally it was John Onder and DeVere Pride. And I'm like, I don't think I can do that. So the next category in my mind as a younger me was like an ensemblist. How do I play music with other people as often as I can? So I think I'm going to try that. And I categorize that 2 ways. It's like, okay, the first category is someone who plays with other people all the time, but different people, studio musicians, Leland Sklar's of the world, Carol Kay's of the world, and it's a great career, long. But the other category, which appealed to me, was being in a band. How do I get in a band? How do I get in a band and stay in a band for a long time? I wanted to be Ian Hill from Judas Priest and stay in a band for 50 years. I wanted to be Bill Wyman to Charlie Watts, and I wanted to be Noel Redding to Mitch Mitchell and Buddy Miles and Billy Cox and all that. So if you'd have told me as that youngster that in my 50s, with more gigs behind me that I have in front of me, that I was going to meet you and be in a band with you, I wouldn't have believed it. I hit the absolute jackpot being in a band with Billy Teichmiller.
Glad you think so.
I'm not done now.
Okay.
Hold on.
I'll leave you alone.
Listen, I admire you, and I am honored to be in a band with you. I appreciate everything that you bring to the table for 5 O'Clock Charlie. You make me want to play better. You make me want to gig better. You make me want to be a better musician, and that's the best compliment I can give you. And I appreciate you, and I love you for that.
Well, I love you, man.
I love you a lot.
Yeah.
Playing at a high level like we do, and I follow your lead, and 1 + 1 = 3, and the energy and the power. I pinch myself sometimes. So I wanted to get that out of the way. It needs to be said because it doesn't get said enough.
Well, I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you
I'm
too.
glad you contacted me when you were needing a drummer.
For the record, he says I didn't trick him.
I did not.
Okay,
Yeah.
I contacted
There was no tricking
All
to
right.
that.
but I got you today.
Yeah.
So all that aside, I was really nervous about that. I actually wrote that down 3 or 4 times. I'm at the vet's office practicing that, but you mean a lot to me. So let's talk about you.
Okay.
Born in 1956.
Yep.
Okay. And you were born in Coleman?
Coleman.
Okay. So where along the line did you discover drums, your first drum set, or where did it come to you?
Drums, my parents put me in piano when I was 5 years old. At 7, the drums got me then as a parade of all things, marching percussion, drums. I guess it was Coleman High School marching band. The band plays and then they break. The drummers take over, play cadence. Well, that's what was happening when they went past me. And it was just the drums playing when they passed. And I was like, oh my goodness, I want to do that. And later that year, Ed Sullivan, the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan. So that nailed it.
I got you. So that's 1964.
Yeah.
So like a lot of people, the Ed Sullivan moment was big for you as well.
Yeah, it hit a lot of people.
So you're 8 years old when that happens.
Yeah.
And your first drum was what?
7, I think. That's 2nd grade.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's early.
Yeah. That's early. It did it for me. My first drum, Ludwig
snare drum or
field
did you ever-
snare.
Okay.
Yeah. Back then, they had, when you went into school band, instead of the bell kit and practice pad they get today, it was field drum. That way the high school didn't have to buy field drums so all the drummers had their own drum.
So you were playing in the marching band right off the bat?
They in 5th grade, and they don't do it now. The
Wow.
5th grade, they had us in the street in parade formation marching. Yeah.
And you were marching with the high school band?
Oh yeah.
It was all one thing?
Yeah. Well, you go through. They started band in 5th grade.
Okay.
Then there was junior high, middle school, and middle school band didn't march much except for parade. Football field marching starts in high school.
And how
it did
many
then.
people were in the band?
Coleman's band was pretty strong. It was about 100, 120 strong.
That's big
Yeah.
For
Especially for Coleman.
a town that size.
Yeah.
So the 60s. So you're in the marching band in the 60s
Yeah.
in Coleman High School in Alabama.
Yeah.
And this is the age of JFK getting shot and
It was
RFK getting
weird
shot.
times. Yeah. It was weird.
So
Yeah. Growing up in that, I was constantly watching the TV, watching news with my dad and quizzing him, why are they doing this? And he really didn't have an answer. There was no, the civil rights movement, the stuff that happened in Birmingham, there's just, he couldn't answer, why are they doing that?
Right.
They just, it's almost like what's happening now. Why are they
What's
doing
going
this?
on?
Yeah.
A lot happened in a short amount of time. I mean, you're a young person in middle school, high school, and JFK and Malcolm X are assassinated near each other.
Bobby. Yeah.
And that's in 68, MLK and Bobby both in 68. So in 68, you're 12?
Yep. Something
12,
like that.
13, you're a freshman in high school in the marching band in Coleman.
Yeah.
What was the social dynamic like between the groups in school? You got the band, you got the jocks, you got...
Yeah. It's like any typical, it's still the way, the same way now. You got the band kids, the geek kids, and you had the jocks, and you had the cheerleaders, and they had their little sorority thing, and same thing in college when you got there too. There's the Greeks and there's the independents, and
was all this social stuff part of your conversation with your bandmates and your students, or
not really? No. Coleman. You have to bear in mind, Coleman was pretty much an all-white community. So that conversation didn't happen much in Coleman. It was stuff that was happening elsewhere.
It wasn't here.
Yeah, it wasn't happening around us, so it didn't really affect us in Coleman that much. But man, when I hit college is when I hit the diversity. Yeah.
Gotcha. So Woodstock and Jimi Hendrix's peak of his career is in 69. So you're still in high school at that time. Did that news affect you at all, or was it
the British invasion and Woodstock? Yeah, that was a huge influence. Yeah.
What did you have records?
Oh yeah.
So you had a record player, and you have lots of brothers and sisters too, right?
Yeah. I mean, Sabbath, the whole British invasion, Sabbath, Zeppelin, Cream, Hendrix. And there was the American bands too. I mean, there's a lot of great American bands at that time.
And you purchased those records?
Oh yeah. And my brother and sister were both feeding me music to listen to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You've mentioned before that your dad played a big role, even though he was big in the church. He played a role taking you to concerts and
he did
things like that.
If he only knew. They would drive me to Birmingham. They drove me to see Steppenwolf, Chicago. They had a shower of stars in Birmingham, which was lots of different bands playing at once for like $10 to get in. It's crazy. But yeah, I saw all kinds of bands at Shower Stars.
And who stood out to you drumming wise?
Drumming wise? That's, I hadn't really thought about it. The guy that really influenced me, that nailed me down to wanting to do this for a living was, we actually opened for him when I was in 8th grade. I don't even know the guy's name, but he was playing with the Union Gap.
Oh, Gary Puckett.
Gary Puckett and the Union Gap. So we were doing a battle of the bands at Rickwood Field.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And we were the last band on the Battle of the Bands. Gary Puckett and the Union Gap were the headliners. So, and before we started, they were sound checking, and I was just like, oh, wow.
Cool.
Yeah, this is cool. I could do this. Yeah.
And it's neat that Rickwood Field is still there. It's the oldest continuously operating ballpark in the country.
It is.
And the history in Birmingham and Coleman were vastly different cultures too. It's cool that your dad would take you down there. Would he just stay in the car, or what would he do?
I have no idea what he did. I didn't get a chance to ask him. Yeah.
Those are great stories.
Yeah.
So when did you get a kit during this whole process? Because you graduated from
junior high school. The first thing I did when Mom and Dad finally went, we got to get him a drum set. I was using my field drum case for a bass drum, and my fill snare, and playing on the rim for simple sounds with a little singing with a little group when I was in junior high.
Wow.
Yeah.
So at this point, you're already playing drums.
Oh, yeah.
For 6 years.
Yeah.
A lot of kids don't start that early.
No.
Big advantage for you.
I guess. Yeah.
And you mentioned college. So you graduated high school what year?
Graduated high school in 74.
74.
Yeah.
And how big was Coleman's graduating class?
I have no idea.
Small?
It was, yeah. Yeah, it was, I have no idea.
And you played all the football games, marching band, all that stuff. So years and years and shows and parades are just
years stuff that everybody ought to have to go through that. Yeah, it's wonderful stuff.
It is, isn't it? I got to do that.
Yeah.
The stories about all that are fantastic, especially, but I did it in the 80s.
You were a Bob Jones kid.
I was a Bob Jones kid, but it was in the 80s, which is different. The culture was different. Reagan and the world is great and hair metal is taken over, which was not great, but I still had my British invasion moments. But so you have your records, you have your high school diploma, you have your drum set, and you have all these experiences. Same band director the whole time, or
Bonnie James, Coleman High.
He was the man.
Yeah, he was the man. He's the one who instilled the love of music in me. He really did. He was a huge influence.
And his teaching style, do you find yourself doing that?
No, because you can get arrested for what he used to do. No, you can't throw stuff at kids.
Right.
And still teach.
Do you have a good story about him getting mad at you about something?
No, not me in general. We had a lot of batons thrown at the drum section. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Were you the chair of the percussion section?
There was two of us that were sort of co-head of the drum section.
And from there, you spent a summer at home before, you told me this before, you spent a summer at home before you went to Alabama.
Yeah.
How did Alabama come about?
Alabama's just, my brother went to Alabama. My dad was an Alabama fan, and it was just a given.
You were going to Alabama.
Yeah. It's odd. It's now UNA. It was Florence University at the time. They were trying to get their music department up and running, and they had recruited me. And then I went and talked to Mathis, the percussion guy at UA, and he convinced me to go to UA.
It's no brainer. It's like you got these two you want to go to, and this one just kind of took over.
Yeah, and plus, $1 million band.
Exactly. That was my next question. So Bear Bryant just arrives in Tuscaloosa about the same time you arrive in Tuscaloosa.
No, he'd been there for a while.
So 72, he had been there. So 74, they just started winning big.
Not when I was there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, no, they were losing. Yeah, when I was marching. I did get to step on his foot once. That was fun.
Was he wearing his houndstooth hat?
Oh, yeah. We were lining up for halftime show, and he happened to get right next to me. And I stumbled. I didn't mean to step on his foot, but he growled. He growled like a bear.
I did not know that one, Bill. He assaulted Bear Bryant by accident. But the $1 Million Band and most college bands are a dramatic step up from a high school band. It's like real.
It was an eye opener. That's what instilled. Looking at a chart and knowing where you had to be. Nobody was going to tell you. You better look at your chart and know, and you better have your music worked up when you get there.
And your grade depended on it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, grades, yeah.
That's what's a bit different about college is, teacher doesn't care if you flunk out or not.
No.
High school, it's like, he's moving you along and disciplining you to be better. And in college, either you want to play or you don't want to play. Either you want to pass or you don't want to pass. Yeah. So you played all the home games between Tuscaloosa and Legion Field?
Yeah.
You did a little of both?
Yeah. What's
the furthest you traveled?
Oh, man. Mississippi, Georgia, Tennessee. Yeah, there was several.
So that was a regular thing. Every year you were going to all the SEC schools. And playing. And was there a band in the SEC in your opinion, that was better than the $1 Million Band?
Not in my opinion. No.
$1 Million Band's got a heck of a reputation
Yeah.
for being one of the best ever.
Yeah.
Did you look at marching bands at USC and Stanford as, what did you think about, what would your bandmates saying about those colleges and those legendary bands?
Honestly, we never even, for me, football didn't mean that much to me. Still doesn't. My concern was if we could blow the other band off the field or not. And we usually did.
Well, who got you? Who got you guys?
Nobody. Well, I was marching. Yeah. There's some great ones now that are, it's pretty serious. Yeah.
How big was the percussion section?
Not that big then. It was 5 snare drummers and 3 bass drummers, about 4 tenor players.
And section leaders? Every section had a leader. And then there was who was the main?
Stevie Samples Jr. His dad was the jazz band director at UA. And Stevie grew up listening to jazz records. He's just a monster player.
Goodness.
Yeah.
That just sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it was a blast.
And you did that for a few years, and then your next step was what?
I dropped out and went to work. Yeah.
In Tuscaloosa?
Well, the band I played with in high school was a working band. When we weren't, the weekends when we were in school and the summer, we were booked through Southeastern Attractions. In Tuscaloosa, I tied up with a bunch of other music majors, and we had a band, but it didn't work much. We were all busy with school, and when the older guys started graduating, that sort of fizzled out. And so, Tuscaloosa is not a big, there's not a big music scene in Tuscaloosa.
And where were you going? You were playing on the outskirts of town and roadhouses and whatnot?
Yeah. Yeah. Southeastern runs you all over the Southeast.
So this is the mid-'70s.
Yep.
And for perspective, I'm just now turning 10 or 12 right in there and beginning to understand what music even is. And you've gotten a practically 15-year head start on me at that point of playing, not just now we're only differ by 10 years, but the playing experience itself is, at this point, this is what you're going to do.
Yeah. I was in it. Yeah.
No turning back.
No turning back.
And then you could make good money compared to the economy, the money.
We made pretty good money. Sometimes better than what we're making now. It's crazy.
And Vietnam's going on still.
Vietnam, yeah. Don't even get me started.
I was about to say, did that fact that Vietnam was going on, even though you were in Coleman and Tuscaloosa, did it affect the culture of you and your bandmates and the people you played for?
No.
Because
not really.
I have no recollection of Vietnam at all.
Yeah.
At my age. And my dad was part of the space race. So he had his head down being an engineer. And I didn't really learn about Vietnam until I learned it in school in the history books. But you had friends who went off to Vietnam.
I had some friends that went to Nam. I had relatives. My first cousin was a Navy swift boat and communications engineer on a swift boat.
Goodness.
Yeah. He doesn't talk about it much.
They don't.
Yeah.
And famously, Microwave Dave.
Oh, yeah.
Was
intelligence officer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He came back and decided he wasn't going to do that anymore. He was going to play music. So there's a collection of people that made really hard decisions. Looking back, it seems like to me that it was the decisions that got made were more cut and dried than the decisions that the 80s kids had. We had so much to choose from that it just seemed like if you picked your path in the 70s, you had a way to make a living doing it.
You did. Yeah. I discovered house band gigs in 76. 76.
And where was that?
First started in Gadsden at a Holiday Inn. The guitar player that I played with in high school, Michael Reed, that's a story in itself. Michael, he called up and said that there was some guys. There's Mike Knighton, the bass player, was also from Coleman, and Jerry Smith, the keyboard player. Anyway, they had gotten hold of Michael Reed, the guitar player, and were looking for a guitar player drummer. So Reed called me, and then Reed didn't do the gig. He started working with, I think that's when they first started Hotel, the Birmingham band. And Greg Dunn, the guitar player that I was playing with in Tuscaloosa, Greg and I took the gig with Mike Knighton and Jerry Smith. And that was in Gadsden. Then Leon Rutger from the Vapors, he came and listened to us and hired that band to play the Vapors house gig.
What kind of music was it?
Top 40. Top 40. We'd look at the charts every week and see what we needed to work up.
And you're playing 5 nights a week, 6 nights a week?
5 nights a week, rehearsing 2 or 3 days a week.
Probably tighter.
It's a full-time job.
It was tight, wasn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And this is 76, 77?
76, yeah, 77.
So Leon comes and hires the band to move
Yeah.
to the Vapors.
And that's when I hit Huntsville. And that was a whole new learning experience. The house band situation in Huntsville was an experience. They didn't hire bands. They hired individuals to play in their band. So, if you did something that they didn't like, you were gone and somebody else was in. So, yeah, that was and we called it the Huntsville Shuffle. There's like every 9 to 10 months, the club owners would get restless and all the musicians would wind up at different places. Everybody's still working, but everybody's playing with somebody else now. And it's great community. The music community was great. And
there was money to be made because you're playing 5 nights a week. The drinking age is 19.
Yeah.
Vietnam's over. People are coming home.
Oh, it's crazy. And Huntsville was a wet spot in a bunch of dry counties.
Right.
So at that time, Huntsville was drawing from Scottsboro, Decatur, all around this area. And yeah, there was huge clubs packed 5 nights a week.
And which club did you stay at the longest, you think?
Probably the Vapors. Yeah. I think I stayed there the longest.
How many years is that?
Not many years, just about a year. Yeah.
Because of the Huntsville Shuffle.
The Huntsville Shuffle, yeah.
For those who don't know, though, I remember vaguely that there were literally 20 to 25 places to play in Huntsville for a full-time musician. So that's 80 to 100 musicians that are working all the time with a salary competitive to Saginaw or something. And it was a real career. You could decide to work 40 hours a week, or you could be in a band.
Yep.
And you could still buy a house and buy a car and all those things.
And it was wonderful until disco came around.
And that was
disco shut it down, 78. And I hit the road again.
So you're living in Huntsville in 78, 79. Disco comes. And was it instantaneous?
It was instantaneous. It's disco fever thing swept Huntsville like crazy, and all the Vapors and the Plush Horse, all the big bars hired DJs instead of bands. Much cheaper for them.
Right.
Yeah. So the only way to make a living is I started with a band called Oasis. Not the Oasis that's having a reunion. This was Oasis way before them. And started with Southeastern Attraction, moving around again.
So you held on to the Southeastern Attraction connection.
They were the thing. And they were.
We don't have that now.
Oh, no, it doesn't exist. But it does exist, but not here.
Right.
And it needs to.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Southeastern had several different types of bands. They had bands that were big show bands, and just about any genre of music. But then they would also book bands that were in smaller clubs and on the road.
Exactly.
And you were one of those that...
I was one of the bar bands.
And you were with who?
Oasis.
And those guys and gals were who?
They were out of Birmingham, most of them. Philip Howe he played, well, anyway. And David Frost, Greg Dunn, the guitar player that that played with in Tuscaloosa, Margot, I can't remember her last name, and myself.
And you went to Mobile and Atlanta and just
all over the
Florida,
place.
Mississippi, Tennessee.
Yeah.
All of you in one van?
Pretty much. Yeah, pulling the trailer.
What's the furthest away from Birmingham you went? And do you have a breakdown on the road story that's just heinous?
Not that I want to talk about. What's the farthest? Probably Savannah. It's probably, it's about as far east as you can get.
Did it feel like to you at the time, though, that it's like, okay, we had our heyday, we're making a lot of money, not moving anywhere, and then now we're on the road and we're spending more money? Were you making more or were you making less?
Well, we made more money, but it goes to maintenance.
Right.
Yeah.
Did it?
Equipment upkeep, vehicle upkeep, yeah.
But that's your first road gig, really?
Really, yeah, the first professional road gig.
And what did you learn about that was significantly different than?
Well, watch your intake. You got to really watch your intake. I'll leave it at that too.
Being in a strange town, not knowing your name's no fun.
Yeah.
I've been there too. So you mentioned disco was the big change, or was there another big change that got you off the road?
Yeah, my marriage was breaking up. Yeah. And coming off the road didn't help. It's still, it went.
You came back to Huntsville?
Yeah, I came back to Huntsville. And bear in mind, the Oasis was a rock band. We were rocking and playing fairly big bars. And come back to Huntsville, and the only thing I could find was playing at the Jetport. At the lounge at the Jetport.
Wow, 19th hole or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, background music. Yeah. So it was a big shock.
Culture shock. And there were no other rock gigs or any large rooms?
Not really. Yeah, nothing really happening at that time.
What type of music was it? Always Grand Funk, Railroad, and things like
Styx.
Wow.
Yeah, Styx, some Kansas, progressive rock kind of band. Yeah, Little Feat.
That was fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
So of all those professionals, are you all learning together, or was there one person that was older, more experienced than the others that you drew from?
Oh, yeah. I've always, until you guys, I've always been the youngest guy in the band, which is crazy. And now I feel like the elder statesman. But yeah, I was always the youngest. David Frost, he was an old road dog, man. The keyboard player in Oasis, Philip Howe, bless his soul, monster bass player, monster singer. But yeah, he was probably 10 years older than me too. And Greg and I were the same age. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not sure how old Margot was, but.
Does it seem like that was a long time ago, or does sometimes it seems like you were just.
It seems like a long time ago. Yeah.
So the 80s roll around.
Yeah. I moved to Houston for a while.
And that was what year?
It was 80.
So punk rock shows up. Elvis dies.
Yeah.
Was that significant to?
Not to me.
And then
I never cared for him.
The Sex Pistols and the Ramones took over the world for a little bit.
They did. Yeah, just raw, just nasty. Yeah.
And it was in the news.
Oh, yeah.
Their tour, the Sex Pistols come to America.
When all that was going on, I was in Houston. Look, I went to Houston to play with Ray Brand and Mike Smoot. And
how did you meet them? Because Ray's an important character here.
Ray is. I met Ray when I was playing with Liquid Cross, the band that I played with in high school. His bass player, Owen Brown, and Ray were playing with Slaughter Road. And our bass player was Owen's cousin. So we were auditioned for Southeastern at the same day. And that's when I met Ray. Then I run into him in Huntsville. That's when I came off the road and wound up at the Jetport. Then I ran into Ray again. And that's when I started playing with Ray and Smoot and Jerry Smith, the keyboard player that I started at the gigging with. And we were doing original material. And at that time, all original band in Huntsville, you're not going to make any money.
Right.
Yeah. So that sort of, we cut some stuff at, where did we cut? We cut it with Bill Fair. Supposed to go to Wishbone, and it got moved to, I think, East Avalon. Anyway. And it went pretty well, but it just fizzled out. Ray wound up moving to Houston. I wound up back out on the road. And then Ray finally, he called me up needing a drummer in Houston. So I moved there. And that's fizzled out and wound up, if you're going to live in Houston, you better learn country music.
Right.
That's where I dove off into country. I'm still trying to figure out who Cotton Eye Joe is.
But for those who don't know who Ray was, RIP, I was fortunate enough to have heard him play and be around him. And I'd always heard about him and how good he was. And he's probably one of the best guitar players I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, yeah.
And for the people in town today, I mean, I can't imagine how good you guys sounded together and what that would have been like. It would like the second coming or first coming of Stevie Ray in a lot of ways, because he was on that thing.
Actually, Ray and Stevie Ray were dating the same stripper in Houston for a while. Yeah. We saw Stevie when he was really a Hendrix tribute more than anything else, before he really hit hard. So it was still trying to figure out who got whose image, because I think Stevie Ray took a lot of what Ray was doing and took it to another level.
I believe it. I mean, those two guys were neck and neck in talent.
Yeah.
I mean, it was unbelievable when I heard him play. Of course, Stevie had been out already. So Ray seemed like he, was okay with it. He was just still doing his thing, and he was in Huntsville and he was at peace with everything. But he did tell me that, he was out there and he was right there with all. So did you jam with any of those Houston, Austin players?
Yeah. Johnny Winter's the Texas Boogie Band. Uncle John, the drummer, would have to go to rehab every few months, and I'd fill in for the Texas Boogie Band every now and then.
That was fun out there.
That was huge fun for a while. Yeah.
And what?
I got Doyle Brady stories too. Doyle Brady was the country singer that I started playing with after the Ray thing fizzled out, and
he's hanging around in Houston.
Yeah, he was in Houston, and Doyle couldn't carry time in a bucket. And you can imagine being a drummer trying to play with a lead singer that cannot find one.
Y'all look up Doyle Brady on YouTube.
Yeah, you look up Doyle Brady. But Doyle landed some great gigs. We opened for Gene Watson, opened for Fair and Young. He landed some great gigs. And we were a house band at what was that place? It was a sort of a resort hotel right on the water there in not San Leon. I can't remember the name of the little town now. It's outside of Houston, south of Houston.
Galveston type, or
Galveston was on down a ways. Galveston's the island. I wish I could remember the name. Anyway, it was right across from the Johnson Space Center, so sort of felt like Huntsville.
Wow, but the Texas thing is vastly different than the Alabama thing, except for the space, maybe. But musically speaking, Texas has always been crawling with seemingly like an endless amount of musicians.
Yeah, it's crazy. One night, Billy Gibbons came in, and he was disguised. And he had a hat on, he had his beard all folded up. And we didn't even know who he was until he paid with a credit card. And it was like, oh, that's Billy Gibbons.
Dang.
Yeah.
So y'all had house gigs, or were you going from place to place?
We had one place that we played a lot, but and Houston's big enough to, you could stay pretty busy.
Houston is very big.
Yeah.
Driving across town in Houston takes
80.
An hour?
Yeah, it takes an hour.
How was that adjustment compared to small town Coleman, then small town Huntsville, and then all of a sudden you're in.
Oh, Houston. Houston was an eye opener. People were getting killed because they stayed at a red light too long. Yeah, you watched your driving there, and when you hit the freeway, they tap the brakes to let you in. Huntsville drivers could take a few lessons. Yeah.
So this is taking you into the early 80s?
Yeah. And after Houston, I went to Dallas and played with the band there for just a few months. And then I came back to Alabama. Scott Drake Band, played with them for a while. And again, road band. And
in Huntsville?
In Huntsville.
So you moved back to Huntsville?
Well, I was staying at my parents in Coleman, and when I was not on the road. And then I wound up back in Huntsville, wound up married again, second one. And there was still house band gigs, but they were loungy gigs. But I was okay with that by then. Yeah. And house bands started fading out mid-'80s. 83, 84, I think I started working at Robbins Music and playing the house gigs that were available. And not soon after that, I tied up with Ray again. And we started a version of Slaughter Road with Freddie King. And Freddie and Ray got into it. And then John Huber joined us. And that was the start of the Crawlers. Yeah.
So before we get to the Crawlers, you're talking about all these friends and people you've played with before show back up. And, this is 2024 and we do everything with our cell phones. It sometimes is difficult for me to think how people stayed in touch back in the day when you had one telephone line in the house.
It's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
And you had to have a book with everybody's numbers in it. I had a book for networking. Yeah.
You woke up and just called people?
Oh, yeah. Start looking through it. And some people, like Jerry Smith, didn't even have a landline. If somebody wants to talk to me, they can drive out here and talk to me. Yeah. So if you wanted to talk to Jerry, you had to go to his house. Yeah.
And some of them had answering services. There was a thing called answering. So you could hire somebody for $15 a month, just take all your calls.
Yeah.
If they're trying to find hidden gems in the music scene, then check out what Bud Gamble has been working on over at Off the Charts, where Bud writes columns about lesser-known bands and highlights them.
Become well-versed in the local music scene today.
While you're at it, pick up Bud's book, Sidetracks Music Hall, which documents the remarkable journey of a local music venue. Lastly, it's about time we had a chat. You need to step your game up. Whether it's promotional band pictures or epic profile pictures, Bud Gamble is the guy you want. First impressions are the everlasting impression. Make your first impression incredible with Bud Gamble's photography services.
Hey guys, welcome back to Pickle Tato. Mr. Klein is going to bring us to the end, but I do have something. I guess I'll go ahead and bring it up right now. I'll just get me out of the way here.
Let me set the stage.
Okay.
We got Billy all the way to 1985. All these things from Coleman to Tuscaloosa to Huntsville to Houston and back. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's around 1985.
Yep.
And that's when I graduated high school. So I'm kind of what I said in the beginning. That's when I really have my eyes opened. And you've had a career already up to that point, which is amazing. And we're going to get to your next band, which is the Crawlers. But Bill has a story or a question.
Well, it would have made more sense if we did it since he did that. But so do you remember the first time you played here?
I do.
Okay. Do you remember taking a break?
I do.
And then hearing...
I know what's coming.
Hearing somebody beating on your drums?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're real lucky that you were paying us that day.
So I've told this story on this podcast before, but I didn't tell what actually had happened. So I kind of like blew it off. But I do remember coming back and talking to you, and I forgot how the conversation got up. But you said, people get killed for that kind of stuff or something to that effect. And I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah, people get hurt.
But what you didn't know is during that break, I went up to Mike Roberts and said, and a song had come on, what you guys were playing. I was like, hey man, I said, can I go back, and play this song? He's like, yeah, man, go ahead. I'm like, all right, cool.
What?
Yeah. So that's when I went and played. So when I came back, I wasn't going to start anything between you and Mike, and obviously it wouldn't start anything between you guys, but I did talk to Roberts about that.
That's a good point, though. We haven't blamed Mike for near enough.
Well, here we are.
Here we are. Okay, Mike Roberts. I got your number.
So I just want to bring that up. I know it's been a long time, but I've never actually told the whole story because
You didn't break anything, so you're safe.
Oh, yeah.
And I was a gentleman, I hope.
Oh, absolutely. Until the knife came out, yeah.
That was good. Well, Bill, to your point, though, you've played a central part of 5 O'Clock Charlie, and we'll get to that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's pretty amazing how all this has come along. We're all proud of what Pickled Tato has become and the work that you guys have done. It's amazing. And I'm talking to my favorite drummer here. We stopped at 1985 roughly, and you said on the break that you sort of settled in.
Yeah.
So it's 85 and you're playing in the Crawlers, which is a legendary Huntsville band.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Crawlers, we started out as Slaughter Road with Ray and Freddie and Rodeo Jan singing. Jan quit, and Ray and Freddie and I we were sequencing bass at the time. So they were both guitar singers. So Ray and Freddie had an argument. Actually, their wives had an argument, and Freddie quit. And that's when John Huber joined us. So we dropped the Slaughter Road thing, and we were originally taking the Backstreet Crawlers as a name. And I think that was already taken. So we just dropped the Backstreet and became the Crawlers. Yeah.
And you're at Robbins Music at that point.
I was working at Robbins. Yeah.
So you're pulling what has become kind of a typical Huntsville double. Working a day job.
And night, yeah.
And you're living in Huntsville, raising kids, all that stuff. And that goes on unscathed for about 15 years?
Pretty much.
2000?
Yeah.
What happened around that time that changed?
The house band things just went away. There's that doesn't exist in Huntsville, period. It became weekend bands at the best. And so thank goodness I had the Robbins gig at that time. I did go on vacation. I worked at Robbins 20 years. And I finally took a vacation, and I was teaching percussion 1 day a week, and had more students than I could take. And I started doing the math, and figured, why am I working at Robbins 5 days a week and just teaching one? Because I was making a lot more money teaching. That's when I opened up my own studio and started 5 days a week teaching. And the studio began as a place for the Crawlers to cut our material, so we didn't have to pay studio time. And then other songwriters wanted to cut with us, and that's how that started blossoming out. Yeah.
That's a career all in its own.
That is. The studio, I didn't expect it to take off the way it did, but I didn't do much locally. There was 3 or 4 songwriters that were constant that were coming there, and was working with a organization called Music Maker. And what they do is they help promote older blues artists that are struggling. So they would bring people in and cut records on them, and then they would have something to sell.
That's kind of cool.
It was cool. Taj Mahal's involved. I've mastered for Taj Mahal. I've had Steve Cropper coming through my monitors. I've had the Muscle Shoals horns in my monitors. It's amazing the artists that they got to use to play with these artists. It was pretty amazing. And then Michael Buffalo Smith, who was Grits magazine. He was
right,
and he was a Southern rock magazine guy, and he knew all these Southern rock bands. He came and cut a couple of CDs with us, and so through him, I met George McCorkle. I played with George, Tommy Crane from Charlie Daniels Band, Bonnie Bramlett.
Really?
Bramlett, yeah. And look her up if you don't know who I'm talking about.
Delaney and Bonnie.
Delaney and Bonnie.
Ooh.
Yeah. She co-wrote, I can't remember the song. Superstar with Leon. But anyway, I played sessions with Bonnie and live. So yeah, I met a lot of my old Southern rock heroes through Grits magazine. Yeah, and got to play with a bunch of them.
And that's a steady living right there.
It was. Yeah, it was huge fun.
And that almost doesn't exist these days.
It doesn't. No, it's gone now.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah.
And the Crawlers played at Jay's Lounge?
Jay's Lounge for 6 years.
That's when I heard you play for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, sneaking into Jay's.
That was the longest running house gig I played, was Jay's for 6 years. It was a good one. Biker bar that was open to anybody, and doctors and lawyers and bikers and everybody. You got in there and behaved pretty much.
And y'all were good.
That was a fun band.
That was one of those times where I come in and it's like, oh, wow. These guys could really
Ray
play.
Brand was a monster guitar player. Somebody that doesn't get enough credit, it's John Huber. John was a monster guitar player. Yeah.
Who else is in that category that you have played with?
Danny Hall.
Danny Hall.
Danny Hall's another. Of course, I mentioned George McCorkle. He was Marshall Tucker's, I guess you say, rhythm guitar player. He's a monster. I've had the opportunity to play with Jack Pearson, Leroy Parnell, Pete Carr, Muscle Shoals, great. I played with some monster guitar players.
And you mentioned Muscle Shoals. I mean, all that history is happening right down the road.
Yeah.
And Huntsville was sort of siloed over here doing a pretty different thing for a really long period of time. So people from outside the state kind of lump the two together. And we know they're not. They're not that.
The Muscle Shoals guys are very protective of their territory.
And wouldn't you say that historically there's been more music work here in Huntsville?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, the Muscle Shoals guys come here
Right.
to make side money when they're not cutting records.
And back in the day, the Nashville people would come. I remember seeing Elton John's bass player playing at the Vapors.
Yep.
And you never know who would show up because Huntsville in general pays better than most towns its size. And that's always been the case, no matter what the field of career it is. And music was no exception.
Well, Larry Byram, originally from Huntsville,
Right.
He played with Steppenwolf, and who knows how many people he recorded with. It's crazy. But yeah, he is an old friend, and he's still kicking, thank goodness.
Oh, he's up in Nashville, right?
He's in Shoals area.
And the skipping ahead a little bit. I mean, we had this resurgence of the music city and everything, but there's a history somebody needs to write about what has occurred in Huntsville.
They really should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you'd be in it. So 2000 changes come. The internet's sort of starting to happen.
Yeah.
Cell phones are starting to happen. The world is changing.
The music industry got turned on its head.
Yep. And the economy has changed.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about this, but in the 70s, the dollar's no longer backed by gold.
Right.
And things started changing, and it really hit hard around this time period. So what did you see in the 2000 that made your next move?
I wanted to get out of retail for one thing, and teaching. I was a performance major in college because I never saw myself as a music educator, as in band director. But drums and percussion, I've got a knack for that. So that's where I geared myself towards teaching.
You taught in the schools too.
I did. I'd do clinics for schools. I would do. I don't do it anymore. I'm too old. But preparing drum lines for marching season, band camp stuff. Yeah, I'm too old for it now. I'm not going to get it in the heat.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine? So now we're into the mid 2000s, and you're playing with who?
That was what was left of the Crawlers. Danny Hall and Owen and myself and Thad.
And you're playing weekend gigs.
Weekend gigs.
And you have enough work doing other stuff.
Yeah, my teaching schedule. I went full-time teaching, so my teaching schedule, there again, had more students. The band directors loved me because I was a percussion performance major, so I can handle mallet percussion, temps, everything that the school drummers need. So they kept me busy.
And there's a whole set of rock star teachers that don't play live.
Oh, no.
They're not household names because people can't go to a club and see them play.
Right.
But they are affecting people's lives for decades in the schools.
Oh, yeah.
And just being...
I've got several ex-students who are now band directors and professional players.
That's got to feel cool.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you brought... So did you feel like you were slowing down, or you were just so busy with everything that it...
I had to slow down. Age will get you. Yeah.
So what does that take us to? What decade now? We're 2010s?
Well, we're almost up to your phone call and 5 o'clock Charlie.
The trick that didn't happen.
Yeah.
The trick heard around the world.
Yeah.
Well, what year was that?
Good question. I've been pondering, how long have I been playing with you guys now?
8 or 9 years?
Has it been that long?
Yeah.
Man, seems like 20.
It could be as many as 10.
Maybe.
2004?
Nah, because Ray died in 2004.
Okay.
2005.
Yeah, you've had to bury some friends that you played with.
Yeah.
A lot happened in a short amount. Tim Spivey and
that's another thing. Yeah, most of the guys that I came up with are passed away or no longer playing. Just aged out.
Well, I got to tell the Breakers story when we shared with you guys at Crossroads when it was downtown, some kind of benefit. It was us and you guys. And again, I remember just being astounded at how tight it was. And I was watching Owen's every move, and I'm like, and this could be where it started, where I wanted to play with you, because I was watching you and Owen. I said, I want to do that right there if I can at some point, because Owen's a monster. And what's cool about a drummer that's as deep as you are is not only are you, when we play together, you remind me of some of other drummers that I've played with. My dear friend Bob, y'all are similar in what you grew up listening to. So there are times when Bob is there on the gig, but I also feel you pushing Owen on me.
Oh, yeah.
So you're not only teaching me how to be, a rhythm section mate, but you are teaching me some of these bass players that you played with that you became ingrained with, because Owen does not get enough credit for being as, does he?
Owen's an incredible bass player. And, yeah, he's. I guess he's retired.
I want to be like him one day.
Easy.
I want to be like him.
You're close, man. You're getting there.
Well, retirement's around the corner then.
Find you a pick. Start using the pick.
So, Owen, when you listen to this, you had a lot to do with how we got together. Because, when you're a kid and you go hear a band play and you're cocky, not saying I was cocky when I heard you at the Crossroads, but when you go and you just get completely smoked by older players, that look on your face, you've got this look of despair on your face. And sometimes when we play, I see kids out there looking at us going, good Lord, they don't look like they come in out of the rain and they just kicked our ass.
We have tightened up. Yeah. We're tight. We're squeaky.
But I was, in my 40s, and I go hear you and Owen, I'm just like, God dang, listen to that. Just listen to it. So what you got to just listen. Yep. And, the rhythm section, unless you come hear us play a lot, we don't get a lot of credit in general as a rhythm section.
And we like it that way.
We do. We don't want anybody to talk to us.
Yeah. Kissing babies is not my thing.
Mike and Dwayne can have all that.
Yeah.
But, we have to mention Mike and Dwayne, because not only is our
Do we have to?
Yeah. Okay. It's his birthday.
Divas.
It is his birthday. They are the divas. But we have a similar approach into how to support the people that are singing and playing. And that's a big reason why what you and I do together, it makes the band successful. And that came from all those years of playing behind other singers.
One thing I appreciate about you is you play for the music. You play for the song.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're not showboating. You're playing for the song, and you're listening to whatever the lead vocal, lead guitar. You're listening to them, and you're complimenting what they're doing.
And we do it together, and that's what's beautiful about it. And no offense, I mean, Dwayne and Mike don't take this the wrong way, but there are times where it's just sort of what they're doing is just extemporaneous stuff that's going on because we're grooving so hard, and there are these little voices in my headphones that I barely hear, because we're back there cooking. I don't even know what song it is. I just know we're moving right along. But I don't think they would take that as an insult because we are there, especially when it comes to songwriting.
Oh yeah.
I mean, put us all in a room together and those guys had their ideas, and we know to sit back and just, especially with your studio stuff, all the studio things that you've done have led us to this point. So you have a new studio now.
Yeah. I moved my gear. I closed my place down. All the band directors.
COVID.
Yeah. COVID was a big part of it. But another thing was all the band directors in the area retired that used to send me students. So I was looking at having to go back out and reintroduce myself to new band directors and build up a new student load. And we were playing at a wedding, and Dr. Collins, who is the Valley Conservatory owner, was playing at the wedding. She was doing a string quartet for the wedding. And she came to me. We'd worked before. I worked a drum line for Oakwood, the middle school at Oakwood, through her. And she was in need of a percussion instructor. So I went, well, by the way, I've got some time. So that's when I started working for the conservatory teaching. I shut my place down, moved my recording gear. Right now, it's sort of a makeshift temporary rig at the Hampton Cove location, but we are building a studio proper. It's going to be a performance hall with attached control room. It's going to be very, very nice. I'm looking forward to it.
When you told me that, I was so happy for you because kind of like your crawlers period, you're doing a couple of different things, but they're all music related and all right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And it, like I said before, there's more gigs behind us than there are in front of us. So here you are at this later stage building a studio that's going to make a big difference in the community. And you're going to have more work again than you can stand probably.
Hopefully. Yeah. Hopefully I keep enough until I feel like I can't do it anymore.
Well, we hope that doesn't happen anytime soon because as long as you're doing it, I'm doing it.
Hey, how good.
You got any things that you want to say that might have gotten left out of there? People we didn't mention? Because I know we hit Ray.
I think we covered everybody. Spivey, Danny Wilder, all these guys rest in peace. I miss my old buds, but I sure do love my new buds.
We love you too.
Buddies.
It's fun being in a band.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when, how we get along, I don't know, but we all do somehow because we're, you're from Coleman, I'm from Madison, Dwayne's from Morgan City, and Mike's from Huntsville.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem that different. But when you get around us, you can say that there's a blending that has to happen, that those guys have to really respect each other in order to make that happen. But the music's good too. And you wanted me to talk about, last year was an extraordinary year for
Mike and Dwayne's songwriting is just tremendous. Both of them are writing wonderful songs.
We got it. Yeah.
That's something I did want to bring up. You guys did have your album release party. It was last year, right? Yeah. And you guys are already back in the studio recording some songs now. Do you have any kind of idea when that stuff will be released?
Well, bass player's got to lay down a track.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no telling.
Yeah. So should I be asking him that? When is this going to be done?
Before September's over.
Yeah.
They're going on the record with that.
Okay.
But Mike's songs are unbelievable.
Yeah.
And Dwayne's songs are unbelievable too. They're very different and they're straightforward. One of those could hit, Well,
Dwayne's just, he's authentic country. And Mike, I hadn't figured him out yet. His songwriting style, it's all over the place, but I love it.
I think he's invented his own style.
He has.
Takes a while to percolate sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the studio, you're like, what is all that going on right there? And what's cool is our marching band background, I can kind of put it into I think this is going to end up being a triplet or whatever it is. And we just sort of wait and let it happen.
Yeah.
Because those guys are so far off into the singer, guitar player, songwriting thing that the notes on the page, that's not even part of their deal.
No.
Yeah, we make it part of our deal and try to talk to them about it. And that's what's cool about having the similar background. And I think being in the marching band is really important. You don't have to do that to be in a good rock band, but it helps you. And I talked to Jude when I taught him. I'm like, it'll help you get from point A to point B, and your conversations will happen faster.
Having some sense of time signatures really helps with, especially Mike's writing.
Yeah. He'll write a song and it sounds normal. It's like, that's 7 or something.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
What is that? It's fantastic.
Well, hey guys, let's stop it there. I want to thank both of you guys for coming. I know
Thanks for having me.
I know we're a ways out for
Thanks
you.
for having him too. It's been fun.
I appreciate both of y'all coming. And I guess we're going to end it there. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next time.
All right.
See ya.